It's December 12th here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dan. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour, starting with the martial law saga. The police's hours-long attempt to raid the top office ended with the collection of limited information and documents, with the Presidential Security Service blocking the raid. A special counsel bill to investigate insurrection charges against President Yoon over his martial law order is set to be passed at Parliament today, with the main opposition camp planning to push for a second impeachment motion. South Korean novelist Han Kang talking to South Korean reporters in Stockholm, where she was awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature, shared her novel journey, as well as her strong belief in language and its power. We are learning as we come on air that President Yoon is delivering a public apology, or rather address. Now, let's go straight to our Oh Soo-young, who is standing by at the presidential office. Soo-young, I hear that Yoon is still delivering his address, but what do we know so far?
Right, so you're right. He's still in the course of delivering his very sudden surprise speech that he came to obviously do this morning. He was spotted coming to the presidential office for the first time in days since his public apology on Saturday. And, well, he hasn't finished the speech yet, but what he began the speech by saying was by pointing to the opposition party. He said that the opposition party is right now dancing around like a crazy swordman, claiming that the declaration, or his declaration rather, of the martial law last week is tantamount to insurrection. He said that the opposition is actually the force that is paralyzing government and disrupting the constitution of South Korea. So right now, as of now, we can see no apology there for his actions. Of course, he made the public apology last Saturday for disturbing the nation, but for as when it comes to justifying his actions, it seems like he is defending himself. And right now, as we went into the newscast, he's claimed that the emergency measures that he declared, the martial law that he declared, were not intended to destroy the constitutional order and the South Korean constitution, but rather to inform the people of Korea of the bipartisan split, the crisis of the country, saying that he wanted to protect and restore the constitutional order and the constitution by imposing this martial law. He kept pointing to the opposition, saying that attempts to impeach him since the beginning of his inauguration was an attempt to cover up their own grievances, and he blamed them for completely destroying public service as well as the functioning of government. He's been describing how this entire process after the martial law, the debate on when he should resign, the accusations by the opposition is harming the function of government, saying that many of his ministers have volunteered to resign. He's pointing to how this is really disrupting the national civil service, and as well as South Korea's diplomacy. So, as we can see, as of now, at this point in his speech, he has not apologized again for his actions, and he is rather defending himself. So we will have to wait until he finishes his speech to see if there's anything more conclusive or more something that indicates how he will be departing from office, because that is the biggest question right now within the ruling party and the opposition as well.
Definitely. We will have to get back to you for details, but it sounds like President Yoon will face impeachment motion, whatever comes to him. But in the meantime, does that mean he will push for legal preparations for future investigations?
That certainly does seem to be the case. So as we heard reports coming in yesterday, actually, it seems that President Yoon is consulting legal professionals. He's reaching out to them in order as the public mood and also the political mood leans towards impeachment. And in fact, President Yoon's office is it's reportedly conveyed to the People Power Party that he would prefer impeachment over a voluntary resignation. And as we've heard from his speech so far, It doesn't sound like he will be making that kind of step. So if he is leaning towards impeachment, then he is getting ready for it. apparently he's already reached out to former secretaries for the presidential office from legal backgrounds, as well as very prominent lawyers from law firms. And, well, if he is impeached this Saturday by the motion introduced by the opposition party, then that means that him and his legal team would have to counter both the insurrection charge and the impeachment proceedings. So those would be that would be the major task for him there. And I suppose the biggest questions there would be whether his actions amounted to an act of insurrection, and also whether he had an intent to actually disturb the constitutional order. And right now, as what he's saying is that he didn't.
Alrighty, Soo-young, do keep us posted throughout the day, but thank you so much for the report this morning.
Thanks very much, Tammy.
And ahead of President Yoon's public address, the ruling People Power Party leader Han Dong-hoon called for the president to be suspended from his duties as soon as possible. When asked by a reporter whether Yoon should be impeached, Han said yes, and there is no other way. Han's remarks came Thursday morning, where he said it's been confirmed that President Yoon has no intention of stepping down early. And Han called on PPP lawmakers to attend the impeachment vote on Saturday and cast a vote in order to prevent further confusion. And on Wednesday, the South Korean police was unable to collect sufficient evidence needed to investigate the brief imposition of martial law in its raid of the presidential office. Our Lee Soo-jin tells us more.
In a dramatic escalation of the probe into President Yoon's brief imposition of martial law last week, the South Korean police were blocked from raiding the presidential office on Wednesday, ending in a tense standoff with security. A total of 18 investigators arrived at the presidential compound at around 11:45 a.m. that morning to gather materials that would show whether Yoon had committed insurrection when he declared martial law on December 3rd and deployed military forces to the Nat'l Assembly. But they were unable to enter the presidential office building after a standoff with the presidential Secret Service officers for nearly 8 hours. A representative from the police told reporters that they were only able to collect a very small portion of the information needed. Police were able to raid the police headquarters as well as the offices of the Seoul Metropolitan Police and the National Assembly Police Guards on Wednesday. The raids come as opposition lawmakers are planning to reintroduce a motion to impeach Yoon for a short-lived imposition of martial law. And on Wednesday afternoon, the prosecution questioned former Defense Minister Kim Yong-hyun, the first figure to be formally detained for 5 hours, probing allegations that he recommended the imposition of martial law to President Yoon and investigating the specific roles of those involved. Kim had attempted suicide the previous day before a formal arrest warrant was issued. Shin Yong-il, the Commissioner General of Korea Correctional Service, told lawmakers at the National Assembly that Kim was placed in an isolation room and that he remains in stable condition. And in an effort to streamline the investigation, 3 agencies, the Police, the Defense Ministry, and the Corruption Investigation Office for high-ranking officials, announced the launch of a joint investigation team. There have been instances of overlapping requests for search and arrest warrants, as well as concerns over the dispersal of evidence with multiple agencies conducting investigations. But with the exclusion of the prosecution from the joint team, which expressed its surprise and displeasure over, the investigation is now expected to be conducted by 2 separate investigative bodies. Lee Soo-jin, Arirang News.
And today, Parliament is expected to pass a special counsel bill to investigate treason charges against President Yoon over his martial law declaration. While the main opposition party pressing ahead with a second impeachment motion. Our correspondent Shin Ha-young has this report.
A special counsel bill to investigate insurrection allegations against President Yoon Suk-yeol's martial law order will be addressed during Thursday's plenary session. This follows the passage of the bill by the Assembly's Legislation and Judiciary Committee the day before. If approved by Parliament, President Yoon could veto the new bill, unlike the previously passed special counsel bill, which calls for the appointment of a permanent special counsel to investigate treason charges against Yoon and his aides. The main opposition Democratic Party also plans to pass a bill to initiate a special prosecutor's investigation into allegations of corruption and election interference by First Lady Kim Gon-hee on the same day. The DP is set to reintroduce the impeachment motion against President Yoon on Thursday after originally planning to do so on Wednesday. The party will report it to the National Assembly during Thursday's plenary session, aiming to hold a vote on Saturday. The ruling People Power Party will elect its next floor leader today in a two-way race between five-term lawmaker Kwon Song-dong and four-term lawmaker Kim Tae-ho. The new floor leader will be tasked with managing the aftermath of Yoon's martial law declaration, including preparing a strategy for the impeachment vote against President Yoon. Meanwhile, government officials, including Prime Minister Han Dong-hoon, were grilled by lawmakers on Wednesday. The lawmakers questioned key government officials, mainly members of the cabinet known to have attended a meeting convened by President Yoon on December 3rd to discuss the martial law order before it was declared. Prime Minister Han apologized once again for not having prevented the situation.
I made clear my objections, convened the cabinet, and held a meeting to persuade our president, but ultimately failed to do so. I feel deeply sorry, apologetic, and guilty.
The cabinet meeting related to the declaration of martial law was held for 5 minutes, according to the Ministry of the Interior and Safety. 신하영, Arirang News.
So the police raided the presidential office as part of an investigation into the martial law order on Wednesday, but only to return with a very limited number of documents, with Yoon's office refusing to fully cooperate. Let's discuss more with lawyer Jung Hwang this morning. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us. So would you say the raid was semi-successful? I mean, does it mean it'll happen again, another one?
I mean, they were not able to enter into the premises because presidential security detail prevented police from entering the premises. And furthermore, there was actually a law change just last year that gave the presidential security detail command over police units and military units that were in charge of presidential security. So even the chain of command is unclear. So it's really unclear to me until the president is actually relieved of his duty, whether the police can actually enter the premises and obtain the documents that they desire.
Right, police raid into the presidential office is quite an unprecedented one. What needs to happen for the police to raid the presidential office? The police raid came with the ultimate goal of, collecting meaningful information related to the martial law order.
I mean, basically, presidential security detail has to stand down, and at this moment, it doesn't look like that's going to happen anytime soon.
Well, then, what kind of information do you think the police were looking for yesterday?
Well, I mean, for example, we've gotten a lot of testimonies from, military commanders, intelligence officers regarding what happened on December 3rd. We actually had testimonies regarding President Yoon actually calling individual commanders, asking them to actually enter into National Assembly, prevent lawmakers from convening in sufficient numbers and so forth. So phone records, I don't know what kind of phones President Yoon was using. There might have been a phone logs and so forth. All relevant information will be subject to investigation.
Right, and at the same time, investigators are pointing to President Yoon as the main insurrection suspect. But let's start with the term ringleader. What makes an individual a ringleader?
So the Korean term is suge, and that's being translated as ringleader. Basically, the go-to person, ultimate leader of the whole enterprise. In this case, President Yoon was ultimately the person calling all the shots in this martial law declaration, and that's almost kind of apparent, the fact that he gave the declaration to the whole people, and he's not really backing down in his claim, which also him giving an address to the entire people. So I think that he was the ringleader of the whole enterprise is not in doubt. What he is disputing is that what he did was lawful.
Well, then what punishment does the ringleader of an insurrection face eventually, and also those who participated in the case?
The maximum penalty is death penalty.
Oh, what about those? Yeah.
Yeah, others will, depending on the gravity of their offenses, their maximum penalty, again, is up to death penalty. We actually have a Supreme Court precedent that is right on point of what constitutes insurrection. We actually have a Supreme Court decision written in 1997 in connection with Chun Doo-won and Roh with respect to their infamous December 12th coup d'etat from 1979. Today actually happens to be 15th anniversary of that coup d'etat. And let me remind you, Chun Doo-won was sentenced to death under the Supreme Court precedent.
Right. And the next in line to take the presidential position is Prime Minister Han Dong-hoon, but that might not be possible with police having requested to question cabinet members as well. Then who's next in line? I mean, should we expect a snap presidential election as well?
I mean, we'll literally have to go down the chain of succession. I mean, we do have exactly who steps up each time there's vacancy that is in the chain of command. And what happened was that there was a cabinet meeting right before the martial law was declared, and there were 11 cabinet members. So to the extent that, to what extent the process of law kind of looks at them as having aided and abetted this whole insurrection business, I think a number of them could be knocked out of, kind of doing their official duties.
Before we connected with you, sir, our Oh Soo-young told us that President Yoon is delivering his public address, and it appears that he will face the impeachment motion instead of stepping down as the president. His argument is that there were no problems regarding the declaration of martial law and also lifting the order. From a legal perspective, is that the case?
Well, I think the near consensus among all the lawyers and legal scholars that are, and a lot of them expressing their views very publicly through SNS channels, is that this was unlawful declaration of martial law. We do have very clear language in the Korean Constitution, namely Article 77, that martial law shall be declared only during war or war-like situation. And I think it's near consensus that South Korea right now is not facing a war or anything close to that. So therefore, the prerequisite for declaring martial law is not met. Therefore, it was an unlawful martial law declaration. And I think no matter how much President Yoon would like to argue otherwise, I think his argument is not likely to carry the day for the most part.
Alrighty, thanks so much for connecting with us this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
The tech-heavy Nasdaq on Wednesday surpassed 20,000 thanks to a major rally by big tech firms. The index rose 1.8% on the day to close at 20,034.89. This marks the first time the Nasdaq has surpassed the 20,000 mark and caps a stunning run since it saw a sharp decline in 2022. The index has risen 90% since then, thanks to increased anticipation over artificial intelligence. And Wednesday's milestone comes as the latest consumer inflation data is meeting expectations, reassuring investors that the U.S. Fed will cut the interest rate for the third time this year. Just a day after making history as Korea's first Nobel laureate in literature, author Han Kang took her time in Stockholm to speak with the Korean media and share her thoughts on her groundbreaking win and also what lies ahead. Our culture correspondent Sung Yujin has our story.
For Han Kang, this year's Nobel laureate in literature, winning was a chance to reflect on how far she's come.
Writing my Nobel lecture really made me reflect on my past. It helped me figure out my coordinates, where I am now, and how far I've come. It gave me a clear understanding of my journey and a better sense of the path ahead.
Han's life story was given another chapter throughout this year's Nobel Week. When asked about her most memorable moment, it wasn't the grand award ceremony or banquet.
This morning, I visited a library where students sang songs, shared poems they'd written, and discussed my novels. One student wrote a poem inspired by my short story, The Fruit of My Woman, imagining herself as a tomato and saying, "I'd be tasteless, so please don't eat me." It was both funny and unforgettable.
The author also took the time to discuss her works, specifically how the Swedish Academy awarded her the Nobel Prize for her ability to, quote, expose the fragility of human life.
I aim to capture the incredible complexity of human life in my writing. My characters often face inner conflicts, vulnerabilities, and contradictions. I believe these elements reflect reality and are a more natural representation of humans.
But her works couldn't have touched the hearts of readers worldwide without good translation. Han expressed heartfelt gratitude to the translators, the hidden heroes who brought her books to life in 28 languages.
Some translators I've met, but many I haven't. Yet, through our shared work, we are connected. I am deeply grateful to them. I also hope that the works of more Korean authors will be translated, not for arrears, but to reach more readers.
And for those eagerly waiting for her next novel, Han reassured them that while it may take time, it will come.
I'd been working on a Snow Them trilogy, but the final instrument turned into something entirely different, which became We Do Not Part. Now, I must return to the trilogy and start over. Once Nobel Prize ends, I plan to return a quieter life to focus on completing it.
So from winning the Man Booker International Prize in 2016 to the Nobel Prize in Literature this year, Han Kang is redefining Korea's literary legacy. What stories she will pen and what milestones she'll achieve more remain to be seen. 송유진, Arirang News, Stockholm.
Good morning, I'm Yoon Seong, and this is The World Now. We begin in Syria, where Syrian rebels have set fire to the tomb of Hafez al-Assad, the father of deposed dictator Bashar al-Assad. According to the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights on Wednesday, rebel fighters committed the arson attack on the grave in Kandahar, a village near the western city of Latakia. A former military officer, Hafez al-Assad, seized power in a coup and became president in 1971. He ruled Syria until his death in 2000. The tomb also houses the grave of Hafez's eldest son and intended heir, Bashar al-Assad, who died in a car accident in 1994. Bashar al-Assad inherited power after his brother's death. In 2011, as the Arab Spring protests spread across the Middle East, he violently suppressed anti-government demonstrators. The crackdown plunged Syria into a civil war that has persisted for 13 years. Despite significant support from Russia and Iran that shifted the tide in favor of government forces, Bashar al-Assad was ousted following the renewed rebel offensive that began late last month. To the U.S. now, where the director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, Christopher Wray, announced Wednesday local time that he will resign before the start of the Trump administration next month. Wray has been under increasing pressure, with Trump repeatedly expressing dissatisfaction with him and calling on him to resign. The president-elect took to social media on the same day to call Wray's decision a great day for America. Meanwhile, Wray's replacement, 44-year-old former chief of staff to the acting Secretary of Defense, Kash Patel, who Trump tapped for the post on November 30th, said he was looking forward to a smooth transition. Wray was appointed to the role by Trump in 2017, but also led an investigation into Trump over allegations of mishandling classified documents. FBI directors are appointed for 10-year terms to reduce any appearance of political bias. Haiti has reopened its main airport after a month-long shutdown. On Wednesday, the Haitian Prime Minister's Office and aviation authorities announced the reopening of Port-au-Prince Toussaint-Louverture International Airport. It was closed on November 11th following an incident in which a Spirit Airlines flight from Florida was hit by gunfire while flying over Port-au-Prince. No injuries were reported, but the attack led to the suspension of airport operations. On the day of reopening, heavily armed police officers set up checkpoints around the airport to control traffic and ensure security. Haiti, often regarded as the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, has been gripped by escalating gang violence since the assassination of President Jovenel Moïse in July 2021. According to the United Nations, nearly 5,000 people have died due to violence in Haiti this year alone.
We had a colder start to the day, sub-zero temperatures to begin the day in the capital, but biting winds are dragging down the feels-like temperatures to below -6 degrees Celsius. Now, yesterday's rain and snow on the east coast have let up, lifting a dry advisory in the east of Gangwon-do province, but Busan and Ulsan remain under a dry weather advisory. Meanwhile, parts of Chungcheong-pukto province and Daegu have high ultrafine dust levels, and it will remain dusty through the first half of the day. Now, afternoon highs will be 1 to 3 degrees lower this afternoon. Seoul gets up to 5 degrees, Daegu at 9, Busan topping out at 11 degrees Celsius. Plenty of sunshine is in store nationwide today. There will be a mix of rain and snow in most parts tomorrow. Then Chungcheongdo and Jeollado provinces as well as Jeju could see wintry weather through this weekend. Jeju, however, will have wet weather until early next week. The capital stays under partly sunny skies with cold winter temperatures. Well, that's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
That's all we have for this morning. Thanks so much for watching.